Hi, I'm Lezlie Harrison for Savage Content. I'm happy to be here today with Professor Adrian Cunningham.
Hello, Leslie.
Hello, Adrian.
It's good to
now,
see
are
you.
you really a professor?
I'm not.
But it sounds so good.
It does, doesn't it? Well, I can tell you that the name came from the New Orleans tradition, like Dr. John, Professor Long Hair. So I wanted to have something that had New Orleans kind of roots to the music. I thought professor, teacher. So then I thought Professor Cunningham and his old school.
I love the name. I
Thank
love the
you.
name.
Thank you.
And I love your music too. So thank you.
you.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Yes.
Now, let me find out how you made your journey into jazz in Australia as a young kid. What was your introduction to this music?
Well, my dad was a big fan of jazz. No musicians in the family, but my dad loved jazz. So I grew up with Louis Armstrong, Fats Waller, Mills Brothers, Ella, and he had a great 78 collection. So my brother and I, you know those old 78 players where the records used to stack up and you watch them fall. So when we were too young maybe to understand music, we'd love to watch the records and how it all worked with the mechanism, really old records.
Right.
Yeah, and then of course the music drew us in too, and there's so much great old music that he had. And so I think through my father's love of the music drew me in. Then I started playing piano when I was 11. And I did the classical thing, but then towards kind of mid-high school, I started to gravitate towards jazz and Louis Armstrong. And the album that really hit me was Ambassador Satch, Louis Armstrong's All Stars, and that's like a live album.
Yeah.
We were just talking off air about the energy of having a live audience.
Yes.
Just putting that record on and feeling the energy, it was just so exciting.
It's something we terribly missed during this COVID, but now we're coming back.
Indeed.
But now tell me, you said you started at 11 playing piano. So when did the clarinet and the flute and the wind instruments come into play?
It was, I think I was about 16 in high school, in Sydney. I grew up in Sydney. And I remember there was a saxophone at the school, just sitting there, because we had a small school, there weren't many music students. And I thought, I think chicks would dig this instrument. This is kind of a cool thing. You know? And Kokomo had just come out with the Beach Boys. There was a big sax solo. So I was like, oh, this is great. Chicks are going to love this. So I picked up the saxophone and I played in the school band. And I loved it. It was great. And then, of course, with Louis Armstrong, the clarinet drew me in. There was a clarinet at the school. So I said to the teacher, can I borrow that for a while? And
wow.
that's kind of how it went.
Was it music class or was it just kind of like...
It was music class.
It was a music class.
Yeah, so I went to a really small school, actually in the bush. It was in the bush, in Australian bush. What do you guys say? Forest?
The woods.
The woods.
Yeah, the woods, right.
We call it the bush.
Bush, okay.
But, yeah, so a very small school. So we all had music class. So we all played a little xylophone, a little recorder and guitar. And then there was the concert band and the stage band that had the school. So that's why I joined the band, because I had the saxophone. So I started getting lessons and kind of got in that way.
So then you said, I'm going to New York City with my sound, with all my knowledge of all these instruments. So what got you to New York? Because that's a big leap.
It's a big leap. It's a big leap. I did music school in Sydney, and then I continued to work professionally. I had a good career and wasn't doing so much jazz because Sydney's a smaller town. It's one of those small cities where you have to do everything. You know, you do commercial, you do pop, you do,
Not a big jazz scene.
No, it's some great musicians, but it's small. It's small. So I came to New York in 2008. I did some study with a wonderful clarinetist, Eddie Daniels. I was in Santa Fe with him. Then I spent 10 days in New York in 2008, and of course was blown away, as we all are. And I went back to Sydney and continued my life. And I was so inspired. After a couple of months, I just had the realization that if I don't do this, if I don't just I'll look back and I'll wonder why I didn't, and I'll regret it. And I didn't want to have that, that regret.
Well, and that's that, especially coming to New York, because it could be a little overwhelming. I've seen so many musicians come with, bright eyes and actors, but we all want, and then, you're very fortunate to be able to come back and work, and you work with some of the greatest jazz musicians of your time, of my lifetime, Wynton Marsalis. And so how did, you come from Australia, you come for a couple of days to visit New York. And did you go and hang out at clubs and sit in all over town and see music until the wee hours of the morning?
I'm sure you did the same
yeah,
thing.
Of course.
Right? Yeah, so I did. I went to every jam session that I could to meet people. I remember the plan was I had enough money saved for like 6 months.
Okay, this is good. This
that
is
was
good advice.
It's good advice. Yeah,
yes.
so if you're out there, yeah,
come with 6 months.
Come with
cash,
yeah,
or
exactly.
some way
Ready to spend.
Ready to spend.
Ready to spend. So I did, and then I thought to myself, as frightened as I was, because I only knew, I had a couple of Australian musicians, Jason Campbell, Nick Hampton. I knew a couple of guys, and I didn't know anybody else. So I thought to myself, okay, don't worry about what you're doing here. Don't be scared. Just go hard, and after 6 months, then evaluate. Because I had enough money, I thought I can survive. So after 6 months, I saw the potential. I started to do gigs. I was playing on the street a lot. I was busking. Which actually in the last 12 months I've come back to doing it. It's like full circle, right? You know.
Hey, listen, you need an audience. New York City, what better place than the bus?
There's not. New York is amazing for that. World-class musicians busking in the street.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Some of them were discovered busking. Vincent Herring.
Really?
No. Oh, yeah. I used to see him before he became Vincent Herring.
Wow.
He used to play in the 50s.
Wow. Wow. Well, you know, he was destined. He was destined. Yeah, that's very cool.
So now the band is killing, and I love the fact that it's dance music, you know, swing music. We don't have a lot of that, and I understand there's like an underground swing scene that's happening.
Yeah,
I did one gig at a club called Swing 46.
Oh,
I totally was like, well, people actually dance to this music. Yeah. So you found some love in that, and that's a big thing now.
It's extraordinary. Yeah, in Australia, you had a couple of maybe ballroom type dancers dancing to big band, you know, like people always have. But coming to New York, I started to do a couple of these gigs for swing dancers, and it blew me away because here we are playing some of the music I grew up listening to, you know, Duke Ellington, Lewis. And you'd see a group of hundreds of people, all under 40, dancing to swing music. It was mind-blowing. And dressing up. The whole thing.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
So I love the music. The music goes back to like the 20s and, you know, the jazz age and, the Prohibition. How did you come to love this music and form this band to play this music, to get the people up dancing?
Well, I think
at your young age.
Yeah, well, I think because I grew up with it, it's certainly a part of me. I love the spectrum of jazz. I love the modern stuff too. You know, so I enjoy playing the modern stuff. But I think the older style stuff is because I grew up with it. It's got a special place.
Well, you certainly bring a freshness to it because I mean I'm listening to these tunes and it, like I said to you earlier, it made me light up because I grew up listening to those songs, watching cartoons. Movies, you know, and to hear them, you know, to hear Disney come back to life on a dance floor, I really wanted to get out there and dance. Awesome. I didn't have my shoes on.
That's the best compliment we could have.
No, really, it was, you know, it was really swinging.
Thank you.
So now, do you prefer to play for a swinging audience, a dancing audience?
It depends. It's a different type of energy. If you have a room of people dancing, what you get back is extraordinary, but they're not engaged in the same way a listening audience is.
Right.
It's a different type of energy. So we certainly enjoy being able to do both because I think if you just played for dancers and that was all you did, it'd be pretty frustrating to a point because the minutiae is lost when people are engaged with each other. So I love being able to do both, Now,